Arnie would kill that pred before Hawkins could finish one of his jokes. Okay, I mean, is it that bad? Let's see. I'm down. I do like the AVP franchise. It's cool. I mean, I'm more of an Aliens fan, but... Okay. Let's see. We usually don't watch trailers on Twitch. Is it allowed? I don't know. Let's see. Okay, so Predator 2, right?
I didn't think you survived.
The Who? Is that The Who? It is The Who. Fuck. What? Interesting.
You're hunting something that can't be killed.
That doesn't look terrible. That's just like a young blood predator, right? That's not like an aged, you know. That's not horrible. That to me is just a young predator. That's what it looks like. I don't think that's garbage. I don't think that's garbage, to be honest. Yeah, that's fine by me. No, it looks okay. You know what? The craziest thing is, someone said it looks like Star Wars Disney vibes. I agree. I agree. This totally looks like Star Wars. It totally is a Disney fucking Plus show. This don't look like a movie. This looks like a show. The number one thing here is that this is probably going to be the craziest Predator lore from any movie ever, considering we're going to see them as like an actual, you know, I mean, he's the protagonist, no? Like, when have you ever had a Predator be a lead in something? You know, when have you ever shown the Predator homeworld or whatever, you know, where these guys are kind of like the center of attention, instead of them hunting people? You know, that's the hardest thing to do, I think, when it comes to making a Predator movie, AVP 1. But those are, they're not really. You get the gist of what they do, but what they do in AVP is the same thing as what they're doing in Predator, hunting Arnie. They're just there to, yeah, terrorize and do things. To me, this looks more of like, you know, we're going to see how they actually live through maybe dialogue and stuff like that. You know, the gist of it is still the same. They're headhunters. They go around. They go after sport, all that jazz. That's what's going on here. That's what he's hunting, right? This giant creature. But we're probably going to see this guy in more of a humane light, you know, where he's conversing and doing things. Ochi, what are you doing? The comics go into them more? Well, comics typically do a lot more for characters, for sure. Perspective shift. Yeah, exactly. I don't think this looks terrible. Honestly, this doesn't. I'm surprised people don't like the look of this. It's a young Predator. This is not... maybe it's not, though. If this is what they want to do with it, okay. But the fact that this is not supposed to be, you know, some ancient hunter, to me makes sense. You know, this is probably... I don't know the Predator's lore and shit like that thoroughly. I'm assuming this is kind of his way of, you know... what's the word? You know, that Predators go off and they hunt things and they try and gain reputation, right? They gotta go do this like a... It's like a ritual, like a rite, you know, to become a predator. Scar Predator? You think this is a backstory? Oh, it's a rite of passage. Yeah, something like that. I mean, I'm sure there's people who really know Pred lore and stuff like that. I'm more Colonial Marines and all that jazz, but this looks fine. And it's CG. Whereas every other Predator we've seen in movies has been practical effects. You know, if you want to... It would be insanely hard to make a character like this as a big, you know, in-your-face, hey, we're going to follow this guy's story, if he wasn't CG. I don't think you could ever do this and have them be practical, as much as I might want it to be practical. Like, how could you make this work if this is the person you see on screen most of the time? It looks okay. The trailer looks fine. I'm surprised people don't like that, though. But it does look like a Disney production, crazily enough. Shadow of the Colossus. When you're playing Bloodborne. That's on PlayStation, right? Exclusive. Well, we don't know who the main character is. It could be whoever. A hybrid? I don't think that's a hybrid. Are there human predator hybrids in the universe of AVP? I don't think that's what that is. I mean, not everyone's going to agree. Not everyone's going to agree with it. I will say this, though. The weakest thing about that trailer is it looks a bit cheap. It really just looks like, again, a Disney show. And, you know, Disney shows, it just has that vibe to it. There's something about it.
Happy little peril.
XDX Tobias Kiss type 1 if you love Tobias chat Tobias 1.
No one's going to type 1. Samuel, 44 months. Thanks, bro. Hybrids of aliens exist. Oh, I know they do, but I don't think humans are having sex with predators. I don't know. I don't want to know. 4. Let's play GP. XDD Kiss. Damn, these crickets loud. After this game, folks, we are going to call it for tonight. Let's end with a GP game. Hybrid aliens remind me of Alien Resurrection. What, you're talking about the newborn? Oh, you said Resurrection. Actually, that is the newborn. Yeah. No, is it? Yes, it is. I mean, that creature was nasty. That was a beast, for sure. That was gross. Well,
Serve or die.
if people want it, you know, and it's in the...
Have you admitted to Skaven supremacy yet, Cap?
I hate the Skaven. Godly human being, 28 months, thank you, sir. I don't enjoy the Skaven. No, I never will. You know, if people want Shadow of the Colossus, I mean, we can maybe pick through stuff like that, but right now, the only thing we have locked in currently is in less than 100 subs, we have the Mass Effect trilogy locked in. And then after that, we have one game locked in out of 3, which is Darkest Dungeon. So after that, sky's the limit. It could be anything. I'm in a Belagar campaign. He's cool. Musty Butt. Hello, sir. Hope you're well. I hope you've sold many cars and have gone to see many concerts of all of your favorite country bands. It's simple living, sir. Simple living. I am very tired. We've got one more game. And surprisingly, my lungs feel great right now. It's very, very dull. Not nearly as bad as it was yesterday. Well, I mean, Belagar's campaign will be the hardest because you are homeless. What is a homeless dwarf? Where are your coffers? Where is anything? You're off fucking begging Thorgrim for help, right? You owe Thorgrim money. You owe him stuff. The Angren clan, gone! Carrick 8 Peaks is gone! You know, the most fucked up thing about that is at the end, in the end times, he actually reclaims Carrick 8 Peaks, and then he just gets fucked anyways. You know, his ancestral home that he's been trying to reclaim for God knows how long, he ends up taking back. You know, all is great. I've got what I wanted. I'm fulfilled. This is what we have going on. Who kills him? Queekhead Taker. Stabs him in the head with a mattock. It's a pretty badass fight. Like, Belegar goes down like a G. Like, he's surrounded by Queek's Royal Guard. He's in a 1v1. His clan is gone. Angren is completely wiped out. And he's the last remaining line of, you know, his people. And he stands in defiance against everything. You know, he's like, if this was in more honorable, you know, circumstances, I would best you, blah, 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 whatever. But, you know, it was a battle of attrition, and he had been so beat the fuck up before even fighting Queek, so, you know, in an even playing field, it would be much different. Yeah, Queek, drives, you know, his mattock into his head, and he's just kind of brained. He's brained. Rip! A lowly, disgusting, worthless Skaven. Has no value in the world whatsoever, killing a fucking dwarf king? That don't sit right with me. Why do I have a D-ring? Yeah, Ungrim kills Queek. And then yells off all the grudges his death will atone for.
$10 for you to watch your newest video on the second channel.
Minions have spawned.
Newest video on the second channel. You want me to... I'll say this. If this game doesn't last until 10, I'm okay. We could do that. The Azir incident. Is it about Azir? Is that what that is? Man, starting D-Ring is, like, super OG. I mean, Warhammer lore is great. You just kind of have to, you know, take it one page at a time. Try and find something you're like, man, that's cool, I should know more about it. And just, you know, tackle it with like that. You know, instead of just saying, hey, I want to learn everything, and you've got 10,000 books. You know, the Horus Heresy is like 30 or something, 40 books. Rasheen, 13 months. Hello, sir. Thank you. Like, Warhammer lore is so vast, and I think a lot of people get it twisted where they think they need to know everything, but you truly don't. Well, it depends on what you want to start with. If you want to start with Warhammer Fantasy, Gotrek and Felix is the best place to start Warhammer Fantasy. Every book is a brand new adventure. It's the tale of, you know, two unlikely companions trying to find their way in the world, you know, trying to find Gotrek's doom. Gotrek and Felix, that's the best place to start. It's the longest fantasy series, but it is the most welcoming. And for me, I mean, I've read a lot of the dwarf stuff. I've read all the dwarf stuff, outside of a few outliers. But, you know, you really do get a sense of the old world and how adventurous things can be when you're not tied down in, you know, some sort of grander force, you know. They're just out and doing things 24/7. Every book is fun. It's new. It's fresh. You know, one book they might be fighting beastmen, the next they're fighting orcs, another one they're fighting God knows what. You know, it's always something new with those two. So, what I would suggest is if you don't want to read them and you want to have an easier time, you know, taking in Warhammer lore, you should try Audible. The difference with Audible versus reading a book is
Everyone pays.
Is there any difference between
That
fantasy
everyone does pay.
and 40k's yench at all? I personally think 40k1 isn't smart and just smokes cosmic crack and everyone
Who?
thinks he's smart.
What are you talking about? I have no clue what you just said. Zinch. I think it's the same thing. Zinch should be the same thing, in my opinion.
An enemy has been slain.
So the big thing about the audiobooks is that they're voice acted. So I read the Gotrek and Felix books, and I would go back and re-listen to an audiobook, and it really is, you know, just a better experience, I think. Gotrek is voice acted, Felix is voice acted, everyone's voice acted in those books, and it's voice acted by one person, but, like, he does a great job. You know, it's more involved. You have a better sense of, like, you know, the world being alive than, like, you reading it. Yeah. Skaven Slayer is so peak. That was one of those. Skaven Slayer was probably, for some reason, I didn't love it. There was, I don't know, maybe it was when I read it or something. Maybe I'll have to go back and reread it in like a different lifetime. Skaven Slayer did not stick. I mean, it's like the most batshit, you know, bonkers in terms of, you know, goofiness. Right, like the Skaven are obviously the main part of that book, and you know, Thanquil going around and like just a bunch of. It's like a circus. Skaven Slayer is a circus. It's the goofiest one for sure. Yeah, it's a circus. My favorite will forever be Orc Slayer. Orc Slayer is so fucking cool. Orc Slayer, if you love dwarves, Orc Slayer is like the dwarf Gotrek and Felix book. It's the coolest for sure. I guess there's also like Road of Skulls with Ungrim, you know, Karat Kadrin, stuff like that, but Orc Slayer is so creepy. It's almost like a dwarf horror novel. It's very different. Jeez. I sampled the audio dramas. GW goes hard on those audio drama books. Oh, they do. They did one with Gotrek. And, you know, the voice cast and the voice acting is excellent. Haven't gotten to Orc Slayer. If you love dwarves, you will find that to be one of the most exciting
A
ones.
sight for scurvied eyes.
It's really good.
If you are just getting into 40k books, I recommend Comics Arcane books, Dark Imperium and the Infinite and Divine.
Those are usually suggested. You fucking kidding me, dude? Comics Arcane is supposed to be a pretty good one. It's supposed to be really goofy. Dragon Slayer. Dragon Slayer's got, I mean, they got the characters in Dragon Slayer. The Slayers of Gotrek and Felix are fun as fuck. Jormungandr, peace, buddy. Have a good night, man. I think one of the worst ones was probably Beast Slayer. It was basically like Helm's Deep, but it really, I don't know, that one didn't do it for me. Vampire Slayer was rough. That one. Vampire Slayer was kind of balls. They've got Caradron books, yeah. They've got a few of them. They've got, like, a main character they follow. I think it's Drecky Flint. I think he's got, what, 2 books, maybe? What is Jin building? Nothing.
An enemy has been
AOS dwarves, I mean, so there's 3 things. Well, you get the Fire Slayers, you have, like, the classic dwarves who still worship, you know, the ancestor gods and whatnot. And then you've got the Caradron. You know, they all do their own thing. There's a bit of an overlap with some. But there was quite a few new novels that had come out. I think there's, like, Tales of the Wanderer with Grombrindle. And then they just came out with another one. Which I believe is more of a focus on, like, the dwarves as a race versus one thing in particular. I know Grombrindle, Tales of the Wanderer, has him kind of manifest within dwarven societies. Because he is, like, a demigod. And he watches over the dwarves, and he'll manifest with the Fire Slayers and guide them, and then manifest with, you know, the dwarven, which are, like, your classic dwarves, and guide them. Same thing with the Caradron. He's cool. He's very, very cool, and it kind of gives you a perspective into each of the dwarven societies, because they all are vastly different. You know, Fire Slayers being more ritualistic, tribal-based. The Caradron guys being more of, you know, with most of their cities, businessmen. And then the classic Dwarven being a lot about honor and, you know, drinking and stuff like that. Typical Dwarven stuff. But they're all a bunch of small tales where he kind of shows up and guides a certain group of dwarves in each society. It's great. The dwarves are, I mean, they're... dwarves are business. They're business, for sure. You know, they toil away and create things that no one else can, right? And they love gold. They're bastards for their money. You know, but what you get with the dwarves is... usually, not even usually, it's what you pay for. In tenfold, right? Like, if you're able to get Gromril from the dwarves, or, you know, any sort of weapons or armor, I mean, it will last forever. There is no better smiths in the old world than the dwarves, right? What they create is unparalleled. You just can't beat it. You know, they don't really want anything to do with people, but, you know, if problems arise, you know, they may show up out of their holds and say, hey, we'll go help you with this, and then we're gone. They're very, closed off. The world could be burning, and they don't care. Like, only if it threatens them. If the world is burning, but it doesn't touch our holds, it's okay. You know, but if it threatens their allies and they have the, you know, the ancient alliances with Sigmar and whatnot, it's like, all right, we'll come out. Dwarves are very alien, yeah. I mean, they live in mountains, they eat dirt, they toil endlessly. You know, they're very human-esque, right? They just look like shorter people, but their religious structure, their society, everything about them is so strange. You know, you really do end up in a completely different world when you end up in a dwarf hold. Dwarves are great. The dwarves are really cool. Ornn is more of a dwarf. Gragas is like, you know, the brewmasters, you could say, like Joseph Bugman and shit like that, always trying to, you know, perfect his craft and whatnot, but, like, Gragas is an aspect of them, but Ornn is more of the embodiment of a dwarf. Miserable, toiling, lives in a mountain, you know, grumble, 24/7, right? Like, oh, leave me alone. So, Yeah, I wouldn't say Gragas. I say Ornn is certainly like that, for sure. Oops. I'm getting the charms. I know Windrose, yeah. Being a streamer really helps with playing League. Look what they type in game chat, and Tobito is just talking to Twitch chat about dwarves. I mean, it's something to talk about, bro. It's cool. We're talking about fantasy and all this weird shit, so why not just yap about whatever, you know? Well, Lord of the Rings dwarves are... Well, they're based off of Tolkien's dwarves. I think every fucking dwarf, anyways, is based off of Tolkien's dwarves. He really is the grandfather of, like, your typical fantasy stuff. So, yeah. You know, the one thing dwarves do differently in Warhammer is they've got their death cult. They have their, you know, gunpowder and all that jazz. I mean, it's highly religious. Super religious. Dwarves are, like, one with their gods. Like, everything they do, they worship their ancestor gods through and through. But, you know, at its core, it's like, yeah, okay, they're all greedy. They all live in mountains. You know, they're great craftsmen. They're good companions, stuff like that. You know, they're hard workers. They're honorable fighters. Whatever, right? Like, honorable fighters, I mean, mostly. You gotta love the classic dwarf. It's just such a solid, like, cool creature. You know? It's insane as to what they make and how they live. You know, giant, vast stone halls. And they've created sculptures and all this other stuff that are akin to, like, skyscrapers. And they do that with their hands. Right? Dwarves probably have the least variations between mediums. I'm glad, because they've been perfected. You can't perfect dwarves anymore. They've been perfected. I would say Tolkien gave us something amazing. Warhammer perfected it. You can't fuck with dwarves, man. They're just perfect. You know, they've got a lot of problems in society and stuff like that. Sure, they're not like a perfect species, but to me, it's like a complete package. Anytime you can create something that is so, you know, it's rooted in real world things, but like it really is just so fantasy. You know, it's like they've created a fucking language for the dwarves out of thin air. You know, they gave them this big, vast backstory with their own gods and everything, and it's just so cool to read into. You know, it's like these creatures aren't real, but with the amount of lore going on, they feel fucking real. It's so cool to do that. I mean, it's just like Runeterra, just like any game, you know? When people create stuff and they can make it feel real through, you know, endless writing and, you know, well-thought-out stories and stuff like that, it's insane what you can make. Well, all languages are made out of thin air. Sure, that's true. But, you know, for the sake of going back and creating a brand new language in today's times for a made-up race of creatures that, you know, don't exist, that's what I'm saying. You know? I mean, that's what Tolkien did, no? Tolkien was a, what do they call him, a linguist? Or something? Like, he dealt a lot in languages and things. You know, so... You know, if you're very creative and you want to make a world, you know, you can also create their languages. And of course, they're a play on something. I'm sure. It's not like, oh my god, I've completely crafted a brand new, entirely unique language. Or maybe he did, but usually it's a play on some sort of language, obviously. It's really cool. Like, I believe the dwarven language for Tolkien was based on, like, the old English runes or something. The Futhark runes or some shit. So, it's cool. Yeah. Old English Futhark. Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. You can open up a book and see a bunch of gibberish, but the gibberish means something, right? Like, they've taken the time to create gibberish that actually means something. You know, you can have a whole dwarven language like... But that's their language. You know, to them it works. It's like there's an alphabet, there's everything. There's a calendar. It's crazy what people have created. I mean, look at D&D, look at Lord of the Rings, look at anything. Runeterra, right? Like... You get inspired and you create. You make things. You make things real. It's just so cool. The fucking Warhammer roleplay books are amazing. I don't want to sit here and roleplay as a dwarf. What I want to do is read about them. I want to see the shit that people have created. You know, the roleplay books for Warhammer, all that stuff are so good. So much detail regarding societies, you know, how they use their money, what the hell the money's made of, you know, how they wage war, just everything, political systems. It's crazy. It's like a deep dive into an entirely made-up race that is very real. It's so cool. No, Warhammer Fantasy is awesome. Vermintide is a blip of
Man
that.
reading Old English in high school fucking hurt. Man almost decided to jump out my second story class when we had to read it in English class.
That I've never done. I can barely read now, so thank God for that.
I don't care if the others like you.
Damn.
Prime from Guy1717. Thank you for the 2 months. Jeez. No, if you like Vermintide, so where Vermintide takes place in Warhammer Fantasy is everyone's least favorite part of Warhammer Fantasy. It's the end of the world. It's the end times. It's Games Workshop saying, listen, Warhammer Fantasy, as an entire miniature range, is selling less than a single box of Space Marines. We have to shit on this game. It is the worst part of the world, yeah. It is the least favorite part of Warhammer Fantasy. So, just imagine how amazing it is before that. And it's not that, you know, the end times was a complete fucking disaster, but a lot of it was just kind of business-oriented. It was decisions made by the company to kind of, you know, get out of Warhammer Fantasy. It wasn't making money. You know, they had to wrap up the world. So, you know, for what the end times was, I don't think it could be anything else. You know, like... You can have certain characters go out in a different light, right? Like, not everyone needs to be godded like a chump. Especially when you had, you know, 15, 20 years of lore. But it's essentially the end of days. And it truly is the end of that world. Fantasy's dead after that. So... Who knows, man? Lul. Elule. Who's it? Bro, who is this guy yapping in my chat room? What the hell is boy doing? Buddy, League is no competition. I'm almost 30. Listen, I don't know how old you are, but like, by God, man, we're playing a game. I want to have a good time. There is no time for dick measuring competitions. It's a video game. This ain't 10 years ago. Pushing 30. We're getting there. Total War is a great game. Total War Warhammer is just so insane. It's an insane game for what the Warhammer world is. It's really cool. And the only reason Warhammer Fantasy isn't gone to the ether, as in, like, completely taken out of, like, everything on this earth, is because of Warhammer Total War. You know, as a business decision, they destroyed the miniature game and stopped the lore of Warhammer Fantasy, but then they ended up coming back with Warhammer Total War, and that game saved Warhammer Fantasy. It actually brought back the miniature game and provided more lore. That's the craziest thing it did. A video game saved one of the most beloved miniature games out there. One of the most beloved miniature universes, I should say. I like Cathay. I'm glad they're in the game. You know, Cathay has always been in lore, but, like, it really is kind of like a niche faction, you know?
You dare slack on my ship?
Saymane with the Prime, thank you. No, they made a whole Cathay range, again, because of Total War. Total War saved Warhammer. It just did. That's the craziest thing. Hit the tower! Last of Us is done, yeah. Well, you know, it's hard for companies to gauge interest in something when, you know, for the sake of Warhammer... You know why I think Warhammer Fantasy died? Because the game was so fucking complicated. But then again, 40k survived, and 40k was still a bit more complicated. So I guess, I don't know. Fantasy was just... It wasn't hitting gamers like it used to. I think a lot of people ended up liking the world more than the game at the end of the day. And, you know, because of Total War, and because of people, you know, showing Games Workshop that, like, hey, we missed this, they brought it back, and it's now successful. So, who knows? It took a video game to save things, but... Okay. Rogue Trader is an RPG. IW. You know what? There's nothing more to add to Warhammer Total War, though. It really is done. You can go back and add all the niche stuff, and, you know, you can add Araby and all these different things, but, like, Total War Warhammer at its core is finished. There really isn't anything more to add. If they wanted to flesh out the entire Warhammer Fantasy world, it is strictly super niche content at this point. I mean, them even adding Cathay was pretty niche, and Cathay was a big success, so that's great. But, you know, if you want to focus your efforts elsewhere, you should try 40k. 40k is a little bit more expansive. You know, the world of 40k is still going on. It's not like a finite world where, you know, at the end of Fantasy it did die. We know how it concludes. 40k is still ongoing. So... think we gotta go kill these guys. Everyone called them racist for adding Araby. What? Oops. You got it, wow. Why did Zach not run back in, though? Oops. Why did Zach run away? Was he there? Okay, well, I mean... Okay, well... I don't know. Listen, I don't know historics. I mean, the Chaos Dwarves are slavers. The Chaos Dwarves are in the game. The Chaos Dwarves are horrible. Mochi, what are you doing, baby Moch? What's up? You know what? Whatever it may be, I mean, look, Disney changed the name of the Slave One to the Fire Spray Gunship, okay? So things don't really go over too well with people, but it's not that deep. It's not deep. There's no deep lore. Well, I guess Chaos Dwarves... Well, I don't know. You know, some things I'm sure are based on real-world, you know, historical cultures and whatnot. They'll pick and choose what's right for them. You know, I'm not too bent over everything. I like the dwarves, and, you know, the more the merrier. And I mean, they will go back and rewrite, you know, some lore. I know in recent times they wrote female dwarves to be more part of, like, actual expeditions and going out and venturing with the men. You know, the whole lore of the dwarves was that over the years, you know, through fucking with the elves and dealing with eternal conflicts, you know, they're an ancient race. And they've dwindled, as did the elves. And so for a lot of what the dwarves would do is, you know, the women would be back, they'd be guarding the shrines of Valea and whatnot, and they'd be tending to the wounded, and, you know, they'd be making sure that the hearth and home is taken care of. And with dwarves now, you know, I believe in the new RPG book that they wrote, they've got female dwarves being more of a outward force, right? They've been able to kind of recoup their numbers a little bit, and now the women can kind of venture out and do more. And, you know, as long as it makes sense lore-wise, great. You know, I don't think you have to go back and kind of change everything because one person's upset. But, you know, either way, you don't want to send your women to war if your race is kind of, you know, incredibly fucked to begin with. It's like, hey, there's a giant orc invasion. What do we do? Send the women and the children. Everyone's got to go. It's like, no, you've got a lot of able bodies, a lot of, you know, big, burly, gross, stinky dwarven men, you know, that will go die and fight for their families. Well, they're pretty elite. I mean, they're not like the most elite army out there, but like every dwarf is worth like 10 men, for sure. When you lose a dwarf, you feel it. You know, when you lose a state troop in the Empire, it's like, oh, God forbid, there goes Bill. Oh, did Bill have shoes? Nope. Was Bill dying of a disease before joining? Yep. Like, there's a lot of those Bills. Jeez. Bill! No, there's I mean, you've got Queen Helgar, who's like an actual dwarven queen. You know, there are prominent, you know, places where dwarven women do reside. But, you know, for the sake of, like, your entire race, in a world where you're already fucked, I don't think you want to send out, you know, the poor women of the hold. But they do go out and do things. I mean, in Warhammer, I think it was called Chaos Gate or some shit. It was a Warhammer Fantasy Diablo clone. You played as a dwarven female engineer. Which was fucking cool. That was great. Chaos Bane, that's what it was, yeah. Yeah, Queen Helgar, that was a whole, you know, internal conflict, you know, vying for a mountain type of deal. Dwarves being greedy. Right, you know, that's what they do. Okay, I think that's it, folks. Report the Cringer Fiddle. Buddy, what was he yapping about? Why was he so mad?